Before today's episode, I want to share some exciting news. First of all, I'm very happy to announce that there will now be new episodes twice a month. So every other Tuesday, there will be a new excursion into the forest of thought. Secondly, I've launched a Substack, which I'll be using to stay in touch and to dispatch episodes and the occasional essay. So head over to forestofthought.substack.com and join the mailing list, either as a free or paying subscriber. This podcast is made possible by people like you. So if you're enjoying these thought adventures, please consider supporting the podcast via Substack, as mentioned, or also via Patreon. You'll find more information and direct links in the episode description or by visiting forestofthought.com. All right, enough chit-chat. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Forest of Thought with me, Ingrid Rieser. Why is there so much beauty in the natural world? How can music help us understand birdsong in a way that science cannot? And what can we learn from jamming with the more than human? In this episode, I speak to musician and philosopher David Rothenberg.
I try to hear music in the sounds of nature. And then as a musician, I want to join in. Why do I want to join in? Because it's fun, but also you can learn about nature by joining in with it. You can really gain a kind of knowledge that comes from participation rather than analyzing or turning phenomena into data, calculating things. That's very useful, very interesting, but also interesting to simply join in.
David is a musician, composer, and professor of philosophy and music, whose books and recordings reflect a long-time interest in understanding other species by making music with them. In this conversation, we follow his journey from being a young environmentalist collaborating with Deep Ecology founder Arne Næss to his current work as interspecies musician and philosopher, playing music with bugs, birds, whales, ponds, and more. We met in spring of 2025, high in the hills of Los Angeles, on a trail tucked away behind expensive residential homes. You'll hear us rustling in the leaves and playing along with the birds. Say again, who did you say was here?
The Bewick's wren, the California towhee, the American crow, the lesser goldfinch.
Are you more or less comfortable?
I am.
Are you being bitten by ants?
Absolutely not. I don't see a single ant. I don't think there are ants living here.
There's one there.
One ant is not the same as a whole hill full of ants.
You're not sitting on an ant.
I don't see them here. I don't think it's an ant hill.
Okay, perfect.
Great spot.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
I can't remember the name of it. California, you just drive up these roads, these steep hills, these beautiful houses, and the road ends and a trail begins. Yeah. And here you have a forest full of birds.
It's amazing. So now we have our microphones, we have our birds here with us, and it's great to be meeting again after, I don't know, it must be 10 years.
At least,
yes. 10 years, maybe.
Something like that,
2014, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Last time we met at Schumacher College.
11 years.
11 years goes pretty fast.
In some ways. Sometimes I think as I get older, time really slows down, that even 5 minutes can seem like forever. And if I think of all the stuff that's happened in the last 11 years, it's just so many things.
Yeah.
And it seems like yesterday and eternity ago.
Yes.
But I'm very interested in the idea of time slowing down. That way you could live forever, because each moment gets so stretched out. You find so much going on in it.
Yeah, that's true. That sounds like a good antidote to the acceleration that I think a lot of people experience.
Yeah.
But I thought that maybe we could start with just talking a bit about the kind of things that you do and how you came to be doing them. Because, you're a musician, you're a professor of philosophy and music, and you've played music with a lot of interesting beings, humans, of course, but also whales, birds, bugs, and more recently been diving into ponds, as far as I've understood it.
You're correct.
The soundscapes in these ponds that are...
underwater worlds of ponds.
So these worlds that are... So could you say something about what what is it that you do when you're doing these things, just so people get a feel for it, and how did you come to be doing them?
Yes, some people call me an interspecies musician. Mm-hmm. My name's David Rothenberg. I'm an interspecies musician. I make music with musicians who are more than human. They're not human. They might be birds, whales, bugs, plants. And I take these sounds, like the ones we're hearing around right now, I try and take them seriously as music, which means listening to how they fit together, how they're related, and trying to gain some sense of what they're all about. So I can open my phone, which will tell me all the species of birds we're hearing right now. But more interesting is how the sounds, whoever is making them, relate and form a kind of musical composition. We're going to just listen to that for like a little time right now. Mm-hmm. This is unusually good, actually.
Yeah, it was really...
These are like, I'd say
out.
like alarm calls of two kinds of towhee and a wren, a Bewick's wren. I don't know this except looking at my phone, because I've never been looking for birds in this part of the world before. But not so much is studied by scientists or anyone about how these sounds fit together. So this is getting to interest me more after years of encountering individual animals as musicians. What's the structure of the whole? How does everything fit? Sometimes I've heard it said that listening is forgetting the name of the thing one hears. So you don't have to get the name of every bird, you just hear it as a sound. This is something John Cage talked about. It goes back to Pythagoras, I would say, who spoke of the acousmatic, a sound whose source you cannot identify. It becomes interesting in itself. Not sure what Pythagoras did with that idea, but he's credited as coming up with the notion of acousmatic sound.
What do you think that does for us, or does to us, when we focus on the sound in itself rather than
appreciate the structure, the beauty, the sense of it, rather than saying, "Oh, that's a crow, that's a lesser goldfinch. Next." You think that that's telling you something, but it isn't really. It's giving you a name to something you can't see. So that takes away some of the mystery, but there's still mystery in the sonic fabric, the relationship. I listen to these things. I try to hear music in the sounds of nature. And then as a musician, I want to join in. Why do I want to join in? Because it's fun, but also you can learn about nature by joining in with it. You can really gain a kind of knowledge that comes from participation rather than analyzing or studying and cutting and pasting, turning phenomena into data, calculating things. That's very useful, very interesting, but also interesting to simply join in.
What do you feel that you've learned from playing with non-humans, or the more than human, that you have not been able to learn from
I've learned how much music is out there that you can feel your way into. And so I can't say this is what characterizes the music of the lesser goldfinch and the rhythmic sounds of towhees. And towhees are named because they go towhee, 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 towhee. All species of towhee make a lot of short rhythmic sounds. But that the bird is named after the sound it makes, one of the sounds. And that tells you something, but you spend time with them, you hear how they create rhythms. Do these rhythms back up the sounds of all the other birds like a drum beat does? Do they show the dominance of the towhee of the situation? It's the bird most likely to notice that we're here, based on my limited experience starting this morning at dawn, recording birds for International Dawn Chorus Day, which is tomorrow. And but as music, I just kind of take in the sounds and try to feel how they all fit together. And maybe if I'm in a certain mood, I'll want to join in with it.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well,
yeah.
you should
I'm
feel
going
free.
to, yeah.
Yeah, you should feel free to whenever you want to. Well, one thing that I remember us talking about all those years ago was something that you were thinking a lot about then, which I'm not sure if you still are, but about beauty in nature and why it is that nature is just so beautiful. Like birds, they're so magnificent, and their song is often so flamboyant. And at the time, you were kind of engaged in discussing with scientists about, what is this beauty? It's interesting to ask what this beauty is for. How did it come to be that there is just so much of it? And of course, if you're an evolutionary biologist, maybe you'll say that everything that a species does has a specific reason related to the survival of the species. And you wrote this book called Survival of the Beautiful, which kind of tries to bring out a different perspective. I don't know what your thoughts are about that now.
I'm still very interested in why there's so much beauty in nature. And I was always inspired by Charles Darwin coming across things he couldn't explain as he developed the theory of evolution. He wrote to Asa Gray, biologist, a botanist, who said, "The peacock's tail, it really makes me sick." What did he mean? Like, he couldn't explain why the peacock's tail would evolve in a world where traits that are fit evolve. And it's really hard for these peacocks to lug these huge tails around. So what good is that? They'd be much better off not having those tails. They could fly faster. But he posited that there's a theory of something else going on, the sexual selection or aesthetic selection, the selection of phenomena, traits, qualities, just because they're cool and because one of the sexes likes it. Often the males have these features, not always. And then the female peacocks that don't have a fancy tail just liked more and more ornate tails, and so they preferred the longer tails, and over many generations, voila, you have the peacock, the giant tail, the huge display, and they can hardly fly. Maybe that's why their song is like, "Ow, ow." They can hardly move. They have these giant tails. As beautiful as they are, they're in the same moment somewhat ridiculous. And so this clearly is not the fittest thing to evolve, but it is beautiful. Now, many biologists have tried to explain how this beauty is a sign of some kind of fitness. Like, at least this guy's strong enough to carry this huge tail around. And it's kind of the Zahavi handicap hypothesis. The Israeli scientist Zahavi pointed that, yeah, these features do show fitness, that the bird has the handicap of the excessively beautiful thing, and he can still survive. I kind of subscribe to the view that that's probably bullshit. And I agree with Richard Prum, the biologist, who said, look, sexual selection is just about selecting for something cool and beautiful. It doesn't need to stand for something. It's like, why should you go to school and study music? Because it's beautiful, and not because it'll get you a good job, or you'll get a lot of girls if you're a musician. Like why should? Yeah, that's good. It's a perfect mountain biking trail. They have bells probably because of the mountain lions or the bears or people
or other humans.
Exactly. You were in California. This is where mountain lions study joggers and come down and eat them sometimes. So
beauty.
There's this idea that it fascinates me how much beauty evolves, how beauty evolves. It makes nature seem inherently full of this beauty and symmetry and things that are there, not because they're efficient solutions to some kind of problem, but because excessive beauty is one of the things that can evolve. It's part of nature. It's amazing to think about that. And I'm interested in these extreme examples, birds that have songs that go on for hours, like thrashers and mockingbirds and lyrebirds. It's not the norm, but it interests me. Whales that sing for hours, or bowerbirds that build sculptures. People erroneously call these structures nests, but they really are artworks. The nest is somewhere else. The male bowerbird builds a bower to impress the females. Like, what do you think? Come up and see my bower. Come up and see my sculptures, you know. And they, you know, most of the females are not very impressed. Like, oh, this, I've seen this before. Got anything better for me? You know. It's tough out there for an animal artist to make a mark. Just as hard as for human artists.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think we tend to not think of an aesthetic sense being something that is really present in the world, apart from in the human world.
Right, we say, of course, this is what separates humans from the animals. We care about higher things like beauty and the good. And in fact, why should we assume that when these animals have been around for millions of years, figuring out how to live, what to sing, how to be? They know what works. We haven't even started figuring it out. We're just at the very beginning.
Yeah. Could you say something about a couple of experiences of encounters with the more than human that had a big impact on you?
I think the first time I played music live with a bird, I was in the National Aviary in the year 2000. So that's already like 25 years ago. It's kind of when I started doing this live animal music thing. I was walking out with my clarinet. It was 6 a.m. before the place opened. And most of the birds were not paying any attention to me. But one bird, a white-crested laughing thrush, really started to, when I played, he just came up close by and began to join in. And this really showed me like, you could really figure something out here. At the time I said, oh, this is a male bird, he's somehow competing with me, but it sounds kind of musical. Later I learned that's not what was going on most likely in his brain, because in his mind. Because male and female laughing thrushes both sing, and they kind of use it to find themselves back and forth in the dense thickets where they live. They can't see each other. And this is a very common bird in Southeast Asia, but there's very few papers written by scientists on this phenomenon. Like a lot of stuff we just don't study. And that there are a lot of duetting birds out there, but not so many have complicated duets. And so this really intrigued me. Here was a bird who had evolved the need to sing duets, whereas many of these birds are doing solo performances. They don't have that need. So that's when I started realizing that, playing music with birds can help you get interested in, ideas about how they live. You learn things about them, starting with the music. So that was the beginning of my collaboration with scientists, trying to figure out what birds are doing.
I've seen some clips of you playing with whales too. You had this special microphone that you had plopped down into the water. And it was interesting what you were saying about whales, because they kind of they keep changing their song, right? They keep making new songs.
A lot of birds with the long, complicated songs, an individual tries to distinguish himself from others by having more songs, singing louder, or coming up with different phrases. They compete with each other in terms of originality in certain species. But these humpback whales, they all seem to sing the same song in any one ocean, but then they evolve it. Like
they change it together.
Yeah, they change it together. So it's like they don't want to be different from each other, but all sing the same. If they want to sing the same, why sing something new? Well, some scientists have said, well, this is like why we need a new pop song that's not too different from the old pop song. A certain kind of song is really popular. Let's have another one that's similar to last year's hit, but it's just a little different. We want something new because we like the new. Is that what the whales are doing? It's unusual in the animal world for that kind of collective newness to be happening. And so maybe it is, maybe not. But the important thing that's different about humpback whale song and bird song is people did not know these whales made sounds until underwater microphones were invented by the American Navy to listen for Russian submarines. But they didn't really hear too many submarines. They mostly heard marine mammals, and they were kind of disappointed in the 50s. It's very strange to play with a whale because they're underwater. I'm above the water. I have headphones on. There's an underwater microphone, a hydrophone, underwater speaker, and you're trying to make this contact across the gulf between air and water. And sometimes very interesting things happen. You asked before some encounters that really made a difference to me, and I mentioned one. First playing with a laughing thrush. Certainly the first time I played music with a humpback whale and I felt the whale was responding. That was pretty cool. How do I know it was responding? I do not. I don't know what it means. I felt like together we're making a music no one species could make alone. I'm not one who usually says I looked into the eye of the animal and felt this strange personal connection.
No, you don't usually say that.
No, because I don't like the idea that it's me, this special personal connection. And over time, I've gotten much more interested in bringing other people along to do these things. Like, let's see what they do. Let's make something together. But the general connection of with nature through art and music is a good thing. More people should be doing it.
Yeah.
Let's all. It should be part of all music education all over the world. Kids should say, let's start with animal music. If we have history of music, it doesn't begin with the medieval Gregorian chants like it traditionally did. It doesn't begin with African drumming or whatever. It begins with other animals who've been around for millions of years longer than us. It should start with insects when you study rhythm. When you study melody and form, you start with birds. When you study harmony, I don't know, I think frogs in the Amazon have a lot of harmony. That's where you should begin. And then we talk about what humans learned from these other creatures making music for many, many years, many thousands and millions of years longer than we've been on this planet. Surely that's worth some attention.
Yeah, because that's what was upsetting the scientists in this documentary that we watched was that you were saying that what the birds were doing was music. How could you say that?
How could I say that? How could they say it's not music? They don't know what music is. Over time, because of that book, I kind of arrogantly and naively say, now there's plenty of scientists interested in musicality. And I collaborated with a neuroscientist and a field biologist to analyze the song of mockingbirds, which is very complicated and structured and musical. And it seemed like no one had studied the musicality before, the way they organize sound, because they didn't think in those terms as scientists.
Right.
And this is a pandemic project. It's like a 60-page paper. We really go into the statistical analysis of certain aesthetic ideas the mockingbird uses to transition from one sound to the next. And I was very proud of that project because it's both scientific and artistic, and none of the three of us could have done it on our own.
Right.
It required
That's
three different approaches to the same phenomenon. For example, this field biologist knows every single song the mockingbird is imitating. He just hears them all. Hardly anybody does in the world. He didn't even know that there were other biologists who studied the workings of the brains of birds. He didn't even know there was such a thing because he was so wrapped up in field biology where you go out and observe. And that birds were studied by neuroscientists and they analyzed data and computed things. He was so happy to learn this, and it was great to bring people together.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say are some ways that people who are not musicians can kind of do some jamming with the more than human in their own way?
Take out your earbuds and stop listening to motivational speakers all day. You can do better, you can do this. Turn that off for a moment. Go outside and listen to what's there. Try and clear your mind, take in the sounds, and then think, what holds them all together? Do they have a unity? Do they have an organization? And then if you're a musician, if you want to be a musician, try like joining in. Try playing a little bit. Finding your way into this sonic world around you. Don't worry, is it good, is it bad? If you know what it means, are you playing the right notes? Just do it. With a sense of humility, leave a lot of space for the other creatures. Don't play most of the time.
Nice. And now one of your more recent projects is this pond project, where it's very cool that you're exploring this whole world, or these worlds that are just around the corner for most of us. Most places there's a pond.
Yeah, in the most ordinary of ponds, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
In the most ordinary of ponds, you stick a hydrophone, a different kind of hydrophone than the one I would use on whales. Picks up very close, smaller sounds rather than distant ones. Very sensitive. And you hear all these rhythms made by plants in the midst of photosynthesis, like they're just releasing oxygen to the air, as if there were tiny bubbles which you can't see. It's like saving the planet. You hear it underwater. It's amazing. And it's very rhythmic. It's like a bunch of drummers. And then on top of that, you hear these creatures, insects, stridulating, rubbing various parts of their body against each other. And then they sound a lot like insects that will be above water, except when you hear this above the water, you hear nothing. It's totally silent. All this stuff's going on. People are not noticing it. And I got the idea of, in the pandemic, when I couldn't travel too far, I just wandered to different ponds, listen to them, and play along, play live in the forest with these sounds using different methods. And I've lately been doing a lot of pond concerts where you bring people out in the woods, maybe you walk for an hour, come to a pond, toss in the hydrophone, put some speakers there so we all hear what's really there, and we interact with it, we join in.
Just to jump back a little bit in history, the first time we met, we were talking about deep ecology and Norway and Arne Næss, who is a famous Norwegian philosopher who kind of founded the deep ecology movement, because that's my family knew him, and it's kind of a connection that we share. So how would you say that your journey within, I don't know, ecology and philosophy has developed and changed over the years?
Well, I was very interested in Arne Næss and Norway. I learned about him after my freshman year of college. So that was like summer 1981. My friend Ted Mandrick and we had met on this in the mountains of Colorado at some summer program for high school students a few years before. So we decided to drive across the country, and we were reading all these environmental books. And we had a big book by Dolores LaChapelle. She was a mountain earth mother activist shaman type lady. She wrote a book called Sacred Land, Sacred Sex, Rapture of the Deep, which I'm happy to say I'm quoted in as a young philosopher working with Arne Næss. But I only went there because of her, which I told her at some point, because in Earth Wisdom, her first book, she talked about this philosopher in Norway who had chained himself to the rocks to prevent a dam from being built, drying up the Mardula waterfall, the Mardula Foss, the tallest waterfall in Europe. They were just going to turn it off so they could generate some hydropower, which they did.
Yes, they did.
But they turned it on for tourists, And now it's not so wild. But now Arne Næss was protesting that, and this really impressed me. Like, you could use philosophy and your conscience to take a stand. I'm going to write to this Næss character, see what he says. So I wrote him a letter. He sent back a postcard. Come to Norway. We will go climbing. Here's how to find me. 3 phone numbers. Office, sister, former wife.
What a great contact card.
So this guy had no home phone. I guess he was friendly enough with his former wife and his sister. I think I called Siori Næss, his former wife. I want to visit him. Oh, you'll find him in the mountains. You take the train to Bergen, get off at Ustahuset. Just start walking uphill. There's one tiny hut in the distance, higher than every other hut. He'll be there. You'll figure it out. So I go there and I climb up in there to open the door. The old philosopher, oh, come in, yes.
So funny.
And so that's how it all began.
That's lovely.
Later I lived in Norway for a few years working as his assistant. Arne Næss was big to say you have to find your own path to your environmental work. You could do this, you could do that. And he encouraged me to focus to not give up on music or to give up on philosophy. I said, you're too deep into both of these things. Don't let one thing slide. We talked about many people stop being artists when they figure they can't make a living doing it. Many people stop playing music. They think other people are better than them. Like, don't do that. Keep doing it. Figure out how to integrate it into your life as a whole. And if you care about nature, figure out how to respect and honor the natural world as part of this. And through many years of trying out and having a lot of rejections, I feel like I figured one path through it. Like I managed to get a job teaching philosophy where I could talk about nature and the environment and technology. And after some years, I could say, well, let's just have some music classes here. And the school said, good idea, go for it. Such to the point that now, after being there 32 years, I'm mostly teaching classes in live electronic music where students just jam all day for weeks on end. Some of my colleagues complain, like, you have such an easy life. I said, this is what these engineering students need. Like, other classes are so hard, they should just get to spend a few hours a week just playing, just exploring, just experiencing. This is good for them, and I'm happy to help them do that.
Yeah. Well, do you have you felt that your worldview or ideas about environment in relation to philosophy have changed a lot since you were in Norway finding Arne Næss at the top of the mountain? Or would you say it's
they changed a lot, because it seemed like at the time I was very much fighting against society. I saw myself as a kind of rebel. And then over time, this environmental thinking has become quite mainstream. Despite some setbacks in the American political scene right now, in general, most people believe nature is a lot more important, and they understand the value of thinking about its worth in itself. It's not an unfamiliar idea to give a tree standing in a legal fight, for example, or to think that a river is alive. Things like that are familiar to people now because of the work of Arne Næss and others.
So then you feel like you don't have to be against society. You could be working with society.
In general, there's always room for people to be protesting and to be very radical and suggest things that are extreme at the same time. There's always room for people to work within the system. Over time, if you're teaching and running across different kinds of people, you really want to be able to respect their views on things. So if someone says it's more important to me to get a good job than to preserve the earth, that's for people who have a certain amount of comfort already. I could respect that. It's not everyone's first issue. It's not, for me, for many years, I thought of it as the ultimate issue that subsumes all other issues. But now I recognize that is a kind of bias in itself. You have to be willing to work with someone whose primary concern might be racism or economic disparities or new forms of energy and things like that, not just worry about the value of nature. And I have no illusions that listening to the music in the natural world is going to save the planet by any means, but the more we respect and appreciate the natural world, I think the more we will understand why it's worth preserving. Like, it helps. But I also don't think of it as a kind of propaganda where you just use this music to get people to care about nature. It's fine if you do that, but it's not that it needs this purpose.
It's the thing in itself.
It's valuable in itself.
Yeah.
And we have a sense today that things like music should be optimizing, like an art. You should study art. It makes you creative, and you'll be able to come up with good ideas and make a lot of money. You have that kind of idea. That's okay, but it's not the primary purpose of why you would study music or art. Nor is like you shouldn't only pick music that's going to pump you up and give you energy, like music that's like a coffee. There's a playlist called Black Coffee. It's like, this is just going to make you awake and happy. Like, okay, the music isn't just for that. It's also interesting in itself. I'm interested in different forms of human knowledge tell us different things about the same phenomenon. A scientist listens to this bird. I heard a bird. This guy, probably the California thrasher, but maybe not. And says, this is birds singing for an exact reason and purpose, to attract a mate, to defend a territory. And the musician says, it's so beautiful. Isn't it how interesting and beautiful? All these different birds are singing different sounds to do the same thing. How cool. And for an artist, I can play one duet with a bird I can play it live and people can hear it and say, wow, that was beautiful. I could record it, and if I like it a lot, I'll play it for people later, and they might say, that's really beautiful and interesting. What does it mean? I said, it's not the question I'm asking. I'm just presenting this to you. A scientist would say, that's fine. You're playing a duet with a bird. Now do this 100 times, collect some data, and we'll measure it to determine whether or not the bird is changing his song because he's playing with you. Like, okay, it's a scientific question. Just art and science have different criteria for success, different criteria for truth. Is it an aesthetic moment that works, that touches the audience? Says the artist, and the scientist says, do we have enough data to make this statistically girded conclusion, or to back up our hypothesis that humans and birds can make music together? Might be a hypothesis. Prove it. Well, we have this data showing that in this instance, both human and bird adjust their song for the moment. Like, that's a scientific kind of question. It's a different kind of knowledge, if that makes any sense.
And I mean, it's like you said, the world is so complex that we need different ways to understand it and to interact with it. It would be sad to only view it through the eyes of science or art, for that matter.
To recognize none of them is complete in itself.
Yeah.
A lot of artists, you know, they don't like it if we start calculating in their numbers. Like, it's a disappointment to them that statistics could conclude something that doesn't sound so good. But it can be. It doesn't get in the way of the aesthetic experience.
Yeah,
as long as it's a different thing.
I think it maybe has to do with the feeling that some ways of understanding the world, like science or economics, tend to colonize others and to say that their truth is...
They say we're better.
Yes, exactly.
We are better. We're objective and you are subjective.
Exactly.
Why is that? You know, scientists who say that don't understand that music is full of objectivity. There's ways of analyzing pitches and rhythm that are separate from one person's opinion. Or if you think it's all subjective, then so is the notion that nature can be divided up into entities we can measure. What if that leaf and branches is some part of some whole where it doesn't make sense to talk about individual leaves? It's part of a flow of color out from the branches, a kind of Goethean science. Like, who says it's a bunch of separate leaves? Isn't that just parsing a flowing phenomenon into objects, because we humans like to see objects? You know, this is just another human way of seeing the world. It's hard to get beyond the humanness, but we can once you learn how other beings perceive things and how other senses of communication might work. Now it's fun to investigate how systems of mushrooms and interconnected tree root systems talk to each other. You have this kind of vegetal language that goes on. This idea is gaining some currency today, and that changes how we understand this natural phenomenon. Yeah,
and maybe that can change something about our understanding of ourselves as well, because we use that way of cutting things up into small pieces on ourselves as well.
Sure, yeah. So why should you divide everything up? You could be this flowing being, everything connects, because you were the one doing it. You don't always know what it means. It just is there. Yeah. And you have to follow the movements. That kind of interests me.
Do you feel like, in relation to what we were saying just now, do you feel like interacting and playing with the more than human teaches you to appreciate some things about the human?
Yes, humans can do this. We can understand what it's like to be a bat or a bird or a whale. We have this ability to look beyond our stations in life. This is an amazing human ability to imagine, to explore, to try out a different perspective.
Do you feel that's what you're doing when you play with these different species?
A different perspective on music, on nature, on structure. Did you see somebody?
No, just a squirrel.
A squirrel?
Hello, Mr. Squirrel.
Yes, very interesting.
So, sorry, you were saying...
Squirrel. Did it have little pointy ears?
I'm not sure.
No, let's see.
It went behind that root over there. Do you feel that you're doing, if we think about what in older cultures people would kind of don the bear fur to kind of inhabit the spirit of the bear?
I would like to do that. I'd like to wear a bear fur.
But do you feel like that's kind of what you're doing?
I feel like throughout history people have been obsessed with animals.
Yeah.
We've always cared a lot about animals. Now, why is that? My own theory is that we know they're sort of like us, but totally different from us, and we want to test those boundaries.
You mean specifically animals as opposed to
animals?
Birds?
We're interested in, like, okay, they're alive. Do they know about us? Do they have a soul? Do they have a self? Are they aware? Do they remember us? You know, they seem to be walking around and thinking, but we know they're not quite like us, whether it's our pets or that squirrel that went around the bend there, or a bird. We know they have some kind of agency, but we know they also live very differently from us, and we kind of want to test the similarity and the difference. And that's one reason we're so fascinated with them. People talk to their cats and dogs, and yet they don't expect them to understand, or do they? You know, you don't have to wear the skin of the wolf to kind of join in with the wolf. It's okay to do it, but we're interested in wolves. We want to be the wolf. It's no accident people have totem animals.
Right.
There's something eternal about the animal that needs respect. And we're just coming and going and changing our mind about anything, but the wolf knows what it means to be a wolf. If only we could be that sure of anything.
Yeah, that would be a totally different experience. But is it also something like, is there a point in us being this very flexible and changeable and malleable species, you think?
Yeah, that's what humanity is. We're so flexible and malleable, we have to survive that and not destroy the planet. No other species changes the environment this much.
Yeah.
We're shaping the environment, we're shaping ourselves, we're trying different things out. We've gone pretty far in building a world around our image and our ideas. We just have to know when to stop or know when to adapt to certain things. Yeah. The only way we'll survive is if we understand how to live better with all the other species and all the other processes that are out there, all the other natural processes. We can't use up all the water. We can't push the temperature of the globe so high that it destroys our civilization. We have to understand the extent of what we're doing and adjust accordingly. I'm optimistic. I think we'll do it. I remember Arne Næss once said, "Yeah, I'm optimistic." Sure. For the 22nd century.
Right, in the long term. He was an optimist in the long term.
Yeah.
Do you want to play something?
Yeah, I was going to.
Or do you want to, or we can chat some more, but.
I can play, pointing out that, music has this way of telling stories and they're kind of beyond the logic of words. Like I see it as a form of knowledge. By playing along with natural sounds, I learn things. What things? They're in the music somehow. I like hearing the airplane with the birds, because if humanity is to survive, we'll somehow have to have our sounds together with theirs. I'm not one to decry. It's impossible to get away from human sound anywhere on the continent. Yeah, sure. But the fact our sounds and our species can be together with all these other species and not totally eliminate them, that's the only sign of possible hope. The world has to include both of our sounds. Let's see how loud this is. We should take the parabola microphone out.
Yeah.
You heard that? It picks up sound from so far away. It's like a telephoto lens for sound.
It's great.
And so it's so quiet. It make these sounds so loud and present,
Yeah.
especially if you have headphones on. You can't believe what's really going on.
That's cool.
And, you know, my PhD thesis was about just that,
Mm-hmm.
how technology can bring us closer to nature. Telescopes, microscopes, microphones, they connect us to the natural world, enhance our senses, and we sometimes forget that. At least a lot of environmentalists forgot that in their critique of modern technology. And they did this before the internet took over our lives, you know. But that's, you know, some of these technologies can connect us to the world.
What does that take, do you think? How do we use technology
Study
in that
what
way?
it's doing to you. You know, this is a technology, this clarinet enables me to express something that's different from if I was singing. Singing can be direct, but instruments take us out of ourselves into this purer world of music somehow. Listen to this guy. Every time I go out and play with birds or other creatures, I think I should spend most of my time doing this.
Yeah. What kind of...
I don't do it enough. Like, you know, we spend so much time thinking that work means staring at a screen and typing some stuff, and it always agitates me a bit how much you can accomplish doing that. So much happens, but is it actually real? It's all in this kind of virtual world of... But you go outside, you encounter these birds like you're right there. It's real. You don't always have to document every moment. You don't have to record everything and turn it into something. It's fun to do that, but don't let it substitute for the real experience. We need more of these real experiences. They're right around us, but people often just don't take the time.
So what are you most excited about right now? What's on your mind right now?
Right now, the idea of understanding the connections between sounds, music, science, different creatures. I'm working on a book about the dawn chorus. Why is it that birds wake up and start singing all over the world? It fascinates me that science doesn't really know the answer. Do musicians know the answer? Well, actually, musicians haven't spent that much time trying to experience the overlap, the aesthetic mix of all these sounds. But if you think of it as this vast musical composition, interesting insights start to emerge that I'm just starting to find out.
Yeah, I've heard it described one time as this kind of wave almost that's, you know, just sweeping across the world as the sun touches every part of the earth. The birds wake up and just start singing, and I guess there's no one who really, within the scientific community, there's not really any consensus
There's no
about
consensus what it's all about.
They just wake up and they're like, it's a new day. This is great.
Why? What's it all about? How do we make sense of that? So that's what's starting to interest me. I'm spending more time waking up, experiencing the dawn.
Is there anything, because you did say that we need to change our relationship to the more than human if we're going to, have a livable time here on Earth. Can you say something about what you think is needed for that?
We should pay more attention to what nature wants and feels and needs and adjust our own expectations accordingly so we don't destroy so much of the planet. We don't oppose ourselves to nature. We have to see ourselves as part of nature to live in a world where us and nature are there, if that makes any sense. It's a little philosophically paradoxical to be part of something and want to live with it, but I think that's what we need to do, to find our way into appreciating, respecting, leaving space for this other creatures, other phenomenon, and also figure out how humanity can flourish, expand, and solve the problems that we have. That's a very deep ecology, Arne Næss kind of answer. In deep ecology, you might know, what is it? It means like, some different things to different people, but to me it means like the notion that new ideas about nature can help save our species and our place in the natural world by thinking differently. What is nature? What is humanity? What is them? What is us? What is knowledge? What is science? What is art? Reflecting what's around us and seeing it in different ways. Deep ecology encourages you to do that by thinking more deeply, listening more deeply. It relates to the deep listening of Pauline Oliveros, another one of my teachers. Pay more attention. Attention is getting a lot of attention these days because people are recognizing we have so much access to things, but we're not paying as much attention as we used to because there's so much distraction. So
go out, listen, and pay attention.
Go out, listen, pay attention, reflect, respond, be creative. Don't be afraid to turn off the stream of information and take in a world of feeling, beauty, evolution, and sound, and light, and love.
That's a great way to end.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll find links to David's work and things we talked about in the show notes. This podcast is made possible with your help. Please consider supporting us on Patreon or Substack. Go to forestofthought.com or patreon.com/forestofthought. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.